Welcome to my video on how to install and configure the CognosSampleData. Actually, just how to configure. I've already installed it. Actually, I'll show you where the file would be, what it would look like, and the reason why you might want to install the sample data is the courseware that IBM Cognos puts out is based on this data. So should someone in your company, for instance, want to be able to teach Cognos, teach the student with some of the sample data. Actually, there are websites. Cognos has websites with best practices, etc. And so there are documents there as well. And so it's assuming this sample data, it's a common set of data that you can use to teach from or to learn from, depending if you're the instructor or the student. Now, to start off with, I'm going to display the fact that there is a file that needs to be installed if you're going to be working with the sample data. And right now I'm working with 10.2.2, and the sample right here, it's a file called BI-SMPS 10.2.2, and I've already installed it in the default location. Now, before I actually go into setting up the Cognos environment itself, the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is go and find the packages, deploy them so this public folder actually shows something. But before that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the actual data itself. And I'm working with DB2 in this particular case. There's my DB2. And there's a special script that I'm going to run, but it assumes a couple of users. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually go in and create those users in my environment. So I'm going to go to my administrative tools, computer manager or computer management, and local users and groups. And the two users I want that are going to be assumed by Cognos, by the script, is Go Sales. And deselect this. The user cannot change password. Password never expires. Now, the reason why we're doing these is in the data, Sales DW. In the data, there's two namespaces, Go Sales and Go Sales DW. That connects to two different types of data. And I'll probably explain that a little bit more. And so again, because I'm wanting to work with the sample data, how it's all set up, when an instructor teaches a Cognos class, it's assuming these two users. DB2 was created when I installed my database. All right, so those are up. First thing I'm going to do now, at this point, is get the sample data itself. So I'm going to go into where I did the installation. And under IBM, Cognos, again, this is where I did the installation. Web content, samples. And in here I've got content, and all these are packages. So I'm going to take all of them, and I'm not going to necessarily deploy all of them, but I'll deploy the ones that we want, that we need. Then I'm going to go into the web content, actually into the C6, my Cognos location, into my deployment folder, and this is where I'll paste them. Now, when I put those files in the deployment folder, if I go to my administrative tools, into configuration, content administration, if I go into my new import, there they are. There are all the packages. Now, the one that I want in this particular case is going to be the Cognos Power Cubes and the Cognos samples. So let me do the samples first. Actually, there's the samples DQ is if I'm using a 64-bit, and I will actually install both the samples and the samples DQ. So I'll choose the samples and leave the default name. Don't forget to include it. If I go forward without actually checking, putting the check mark in this box, it'll tell me that, hey, didn't see anything. So next, save, run once, run, and OK. And let me do the other two. I said I wanted also to bring in the samples DQ for my 64-bit. Again, don't forget to put the check mark. Next, and save and run once, finish now, run, and OK. Now we'll also be publishing some power cubes. So let me do the power play as well. Or power cube, sorry. Don't forget to check it. Next, save and run once, finish, run it now, OK. Now let me show you what that did. I published these three samples, sample packages. So now if I go back to my Cognos connection, there it is. There's my sample. Particularly if I'm looking at the models, these two packages, or actually these four, but mostly these two. But in all these 4 packages are what feed the sample data for the reports. Now I also published packages for cubes, and here they are. Now they can't work yet. If I was to run one, it won't work because I need the actual data. Now that I have the sample packages installed, I have to get the data. They assume a database which can be installed, one for DB2, different one if you're running SQL Server, another one if it's Oracle. And in this particular case, because I'm running DB2, I'm going to run the DB2 version. Now let me show you where that is, where you'll find them. Again, I'm assuming you're going to be doing your default installation. And assuming the default installation, oops. IBM Cognos 64 web content samples data sources. That's what they are. They're data sources. And there's the DB2. It's an executable gs_db tar@gz. Now what I did is I created a folder on my C drive, and that's where I extracted the whole thing. So it looks totally extracted. It looks as follows. Like this. Actually, it's extracted at a couple of levels, so there it is. So the contents of the GSB folder are as follows. In this particular case, I'm going to open up the Win and simply say Setup. And it's going to run you through everything, all the defaults. Now, for the DB2 admin, I did put the password as being capital E, the education one, and so that's going to be important. All the defaults are good. Would you like to create the database? Yes. Default is good. The database administrator name, DB2 admin. And continue creating this. If it already exists, it'll drop it. Yes. And now it's running the scripts. Takes a while. Lots of data. Now enter current password for DB2 admin. Be careful on this one. You won't see any text. Just be sure that you type it correctly. So I'm going to put the password that I've assigned for the DB2 admin. Like I said, you don't actually see it typing, but it is. It's being typed. Now I've shortened it a little bit. I've shortened a little of the time. It does take a time. It does take a bit of time to run, but now it's complete. That means I now have a database called GSDB with at least 2 namespaces: Go Sales DW. Now that we've created the 2 users, Go Sales and Go Sales DW, make sure that their passwords are set. And I'm doing it as the default for Cognos courseware, which is Education 1 with capital E, same as I did with DB2. Because when we create our data source connection coming up, I'm going to need to enter that password. So here we go. Now we can find a way back into our data source connections and create our first data source connection called Grade Outdoor Sales. Now I had typed that in a little bit previously, so it comes up. I'll go next. Its type is going to be IBM DB2. Make sure, because I'm going to do 64-bit, make sure the configure JDBC is there. That's if you need the 64-bit. Need the appropriate drivers for that, of course. Now, GS_DB is the database that we installed, and have to say password. I got to make sure you put this check mark. Go Sales. There's where we put our users and our passwords. Education 1. Education 1. And if we test our connection, should succeed. So I can continue. Now again, because I'm enabling it on 64-bit, I could say localhost. I forgot what the name of my machine is, but localhost. Remember that if your database is somewhere else, or if then your server, you got to know where your server is and put the server name. Port name is 50,000, and the database name is, of course, GS_DB. You'll know if all is well when you test the connection. And now I've got my 64-bit configured. Finish. I should now be able to show data, show some of the reports that are there, but I'm not done because I also want to do the second one, which is Great Outdoors Warehouse. Before I'll mention that, I'll show you what the package is, which package uses which connection in the Cognos environment. Again, it's DB2. Database name is still GS_DB. Again, make sure you put the checkmark for password. And this one is Go Sales DW with a secret password of Education 1 in my case. And test our connection. And hopefully we succeed, which we do. And next, server name here, I'll say localhost 50,000, database name GS_DB. Succeeded. And I can now finish this one. Now, if I go back to my Cognos connection, I mentioned I'd show you that for the models, Go Data Warehouse Analysis and Query, those take the connection we just made, Great Outdoors Warehouse. Go Sales Analysis and Query, that takes the Great Outdoors Sales connection that we just created. So now if I go into one of these packages and click on one of the reports, I render data. So this is working. I'll go back. Next, I'm going to have to find my cubes and import the cubes. I've got the packages for the cubes. If I go to Public Folders, Samples Power Cube, and Cubes, there they are. And I want to get the cube Sales and Marketing Cube and Great Outdoors Cube. Great Outdoors Sales Cube and Sales and Marketing Cubes. I got to go find them, and then I'll do the same process there. Create a connection to the cubes. Now I'm going to go find the cubes. Once again, it should be installed with the sample. Go to my installation location, Program Files, IBM Cognos C10, Web Content. And I'm going quickly through this because I'm assuming that if I go too fast, you can just back up the video. Now I'm going into the data sources, and there's cubes. And there are my power cubes. In English would be nice. You'll notice there were a whole bunch of connections for the different languages. You can see them here. So I could have chosen the different languages. But I need these two. The Great Outdoors Sales, this one, EN, and Sales and Marketing. And in this particular case, just to make things easier, I'm going to copy them. And I'm going to put them where they're more accessible, easier to find, which is why I created this little Ed Cognos folder and put them in. So I've got my two cubes there, Great Outdoor Sales, Sales and Marketing. And before I can actually run reports off of these packages, I have to go back to my admin tool and create a connection. Data source connection. So configuration. New, and this one here is Great Outdoors Sales EN. Now I'll check one of the reports when I'm done, make sure the name is correct. Its type is, of course, IBM DB2. No, it's not. It's actually a power cube. Look at that. Just about messed up. I remind people I do make mistakes. I have made a mistake once before, so I need to be able to be careful about that. So, power cube. And it is a Windows. Actually, the easiest way to do that is to copy this. And it's this one here. Great Outdoor Sales en.mtc. Here again, we've got a tool to connect, to check the connection. That one's good, succeeded. I can now get data from that cube and create our final one, which is called Sales and Marketing, which once again is a power cube. have to make sure my spelling is right. And sales and marketing .mdc. Once again, check my connection. It succeeded. I should now be able to render reports off of them. So I'll close this and say finish. First of all, I'll show you that I can actually go into them. That's number one. I'm going to open up the Great Outdoors Sales EN. Actually, I'm going to go back into Cognos, connection, and samples power cubes, and Great Outdoor Sales, and launch Report Studio. Try that again. So there it is. I can see the contents of the cube. And if I named it right, I should be able to bring data, and I did. So both my cubes and my relational data have been set up.